The dust rose in lazy spirals behind Samuel Thornton's horse as he crested the ridge overlooking the valley. Below him, nestled against a backdrop of red rock cliffs, sat the property that had drawn him halfway across Arizona territory. The deed folded in his vest pocket felt heavier than the paper warranted, as though it carried the weight of all his failed attempts at starting over. Sam was 42, weathered by sun and circumstance, his face marked by lines that spoke of laughter abandoned and sorrows carried too long. His hands, calloused and scarred, rested easy on the reins despite the tension coiling in his shoulders. This ranch represented his last chance, purchased with money saved from years of working other men's cattle, sleeping in other men's bunkhouses, living a life that belonged to no one, least of all himself. The letter from the lawyer had been brief. James Whitfield, deceased, had left instructions that upon his death, the Circle W ranch should be sold to Samuel Thornton at a price well below market value, provided Mr. Thornton agreed to certain unspecified conditions. Sam had served with Whitfield during the Apache campaigns, back when both men wore Union blue and believed their causes just. They'd saved each other's lives more than once, though they'd parted ways after the war with promises to stay in touch that neither had kept. Now Whitfield was dead, and Sam owned a ranch he'd never seen, contingent on conditions he didn't understand. As he urged his mare down the slope toward the buildings, movement near the main house caught his attention. Not threatening, exactly, but deliberate. Someone had been watching his approach. His hand drifted toward the Colt at his hip, a gesture born of instinct rather than intent, then fell away. Whatever awaited him here, it wasn't an ambush. Whitfield had wanted him here for a reason. The ranch itself showed signs of good maintenance despite its owner's recent passing. The corrals were sound, the barn stood straight and true, and the house, built of adobe and timber, looked solid enough to last another generation. A windmill turned lazily in the afternoon breeze, pumping water into a stone trough where chickens scratched nearby. Sam dismounted slowly, making his movements visible and unhurried. "Hello, the house," he called, his voice carrying across the yard. "Name's Samuel Thornton. I'm the new owner, according to the lawyers in Phoenix." The front door opened, and a woman stepped onto the porch. She was perhaps 25, with long black hair bound in a single braid, wearing a simple cotton dress that had seen better days but was clean and mended. Her skin was the deep bronze of the desert people, and her dark eyes assessed him with an intensity that made Sam feel like a book being read in a language he didn't speak. "Mr. Thornton," she said, her English clear and unaccented. "Mr. Whitfield said you would come. I am Elena." She paused, then added, "We have been waiting." "We?" Sam's attention sharpened. "How many of you are there?" "3," Elena replied. She turned slightly, speaking in rapid Apache to someone inside the house. 2 more women emerged, younger than Elena but sharing her wariness and dignity. "My sisters. Rosa is 22. Maria is 19. The younger women nodded but didn't speak, their gazes flicking between Sam and Elena as though waiting for a signal. All 3 wore similar simple dresses. All 3 carried themselves with a careful neutrality that spoke of experience with unwelcome attention from men. Sam removed his hat, an old-fashioned courtesy his mother had drilled into him before cholera took her. "Ma'am. Ladies." He addressed Elena directly. "I'm guessing you're part of those unspecified conditions the lawyer mentioned. We lived here with Mr. Whitfield for 3 years," Elena said. "He gave us work, paid fair wages, treated us with respect." Her chin lifted slightly. "Before you ask, no, we were not his women. He was kind to us when few white men are kind to Apache women." Sam heard the defensive edge in her voice and understood it. Apache women without male protection were vulnerable in ways that made his stomach tighten. "I'm not here to pass judgment on what you were or weren't to Whitfield," he said carefully. "But I need to understand what he wanted from me regarding you 3. Elena reached into her pocket and produced a sealed envelope. "He said to give you this when you arrived? Said you'd understand once you read it." Sam took the envelope, noting the familiar handwriting on the front. His name, nothing more. He broke the seal and unfolded the single page inside. Sam, if you're reading this, it means I finally lost my fight with the consumption that's been eating at me for the past year. I don't have much time to write, so I'll be direct. 3 years ago, I found these women in circumstances I won't detail here. Suffice it to say they needed help, and I was in a position to offer it. They've worked this ranch with me, and they know every inch of the property better than I ever did. They're capable, hard-working, and deserve better than what this territory typically offers Apache women alone. I'm selling you this ranch cheaply because I need you to do something for me. Let them stay. Employ them, or simply let them live here if they prefer. Keep them safe from the men who would see them as something less than human. You're probably wondering why you. Because I remember a night outside Fort Huachuca when you talked about your father, about how he taught you that a man's worth isn't measured by his victories but by who he protects when no one's watching. I need someone with that kind of character looking after these women when I'm gone. If you can't do this, I ask only that you give them time to make other arrangements. They deserve that much. Your friend, James Whitfield. Sam read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and tucked it into his shirt pocket. He looked up to find all 3 women watching him, their expressions guarded but not hostile. Whitfield wants me to let you stay, he said simply. Work the ranch, or just live here if that's what you prefer. Elena's shoulders relaxed fractionally. And what do you want, Mr. Thornton? It was a fair question. Sam considered his answer carefully, aware that his next words would set the tone for whatever came next. I want to run a successful ranch. I want to sleep under a roof I own for the first time in 20 years. And I want to honor a debt to a man who saved my life more than once. He met Elena's gaze directly. If you 3 can help me with the first part, I'd be grateful for it. The rest we can figure out as we go. Something in Elena's expression shifted, a cautious hope tempering the wariness. We know the land, she said. The water sources, the grazing patterns, where the cattle tend to drift. We've kept the place running since Mr. Whitfield became too ill to work. Then I'd be a fool to send you away, Sam said. He turned slowly, taking in the ranch with fresh eyes. What needs doing first? Rosa spoke for the first time, her voice softer than Elena's but no less certain. The north fence is down in 3 places. Cattle are wandering into the canyon, and it's hard country to retrieve them from. Water trough in the east pasture has a crack, Maria added, her English more heavily accented than her sister's. Needs fixing before it breaks completely. Sam nodded, cataloging the tasks. I'll start with the fence tomorrow. Can one of you show me where the tools are kept? I'll show you, Elena said. She descended the porch steps, moving with an easy confidence that suggested she knew every board and nail on the property. Mr. Whitfield kept a workshop in the barn. As they walked together toward the barn, Sam felt the first stirrings of something he'd almost forgotten. Purpose, maybe? Or simply the relief of having a place to be, work to do, and people depending on him to do it right. It wasn't redemption, not yet. But it might be a path toward it. The barn was well organized, tools hung on pegs according to function, spare leather and rope coiled neatly on shelves. Sam took mental inventory, noting what was present and what would need to be purchased on his next trip to town. You kept this place running yourselves? He asked, impressed despite himself. Mr. Whitfield taught us, Elena replied. He said capable hands are capable hands, regardless of who they belong to. Sam pulled down a hammer, testing its weight. He was right about that. Elena hesitated, then said, Mr. Thornton, I need to ask. There are men in the territory who will not approve of you employing Apache women. Some may cause trouble. Let them, Sam said flatly. This is my land now, and I'll decide who works it. Even if it costs you business? Friendships? Sam thought of the years he'd spent drifting, the loneliness of belonging nowhere and to no one. I'm not looking for friends who judge me for keeping a promise to a dying man. As for business, I'm guessing those who matter will care more about whether my cattle are healthy and my price is fair than who fixes my fences. Elena studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Mr. Whitfield said you were a good man. I see now he was correct. I'm not particularly good, Sam replied. But I try to be fair, and I keep my word. That'll have to be enough. They returned to the house as the sun began its descent toward the western hills, painting the red rocks in shades of amber and gold. Rosa had prepared a simple meal of beans and cornbread, which the four of them shared at a rough-hewn table in the kitchen. The conversation was sparse but not uncomfortable, focusing on practical matters of ranch management and the work ahead. After dinner, Elena showed Sam to a small room off the main living area. This was Mr. Whitfield's room. It's yours now if you want it. Sam set his saddlebags on the narrow bed, noting the sparse furnishings. A bed, a chair, a small table. It was more than he'd had in years. Where do you three sleep? There's a room at the back of the house, Elena said. We've shared it since we came here. We can move to the bunkhouse if you prefer. No need, Sam said. The arrangement suits me fine if it suits you. Elena nodded and withdrew, leaving Sam alone with his thoughts and the unfamiliar weight of ownership. He sat on the edge of the bed, pulling Whitfield's letter from his pocket and reading it once more in the fading light. Keep them safe from the men who would see them as something less than human. It was a tall order in a territory where Apache blood still ran hot in recent memory, where raids and counter-raids had left scars on both sides that time hadn't yet healed. But Whitfield had trusted him with this responsibility, and Sam found himself wanting to prove worthy of that trust. He thought of his father, dead now 15 years, who had indeed taught him that a man's worth lay in his choices when no one was watching. His father had been a circuit preacher, carrying the gospel to settlements too small or too remote for established churches. He believed in the fundamental dignity of all people, a belief that had made him unpopular in some quarters but respected in others. Sam hadn't inherited his father's faith, but he'd absorbed his values. And those values said that 3 women who'd worked hard and kept a ranch running deserved more than to be cast out because of their blood. The next morning arrived with the stark clarity of desert dawn, the air still cool before the sun could bake the land to blistering. Sam rose early, habits formed over decades of ranch work resistant to any change in circumstance. He found Elena already in the kitchen, brewing coffee over the cast-iron stove. "You're up early," she observed, pouring him a cup without being asked. "Force of habit," Sam replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Where are your sisters?" "Feeding the chickens and checking the cattle in the near pasture. We rotate tasks each morning." Sam nodded, impressed by their organization. "After breakfast, I'd like you to show me the fence line that needs repair. I'll need to see what I'm working with." Elena agreed, and they shared a quiet meal of eggs and biscuits before heading out. Rosa and Maria returned as they were finishing, and Sam noted how the 3 women moved together with an easy synchronization that spoke of years of shared work and survival. The ride to the north fence took them through country that grew steadily more rugged, the grassland giving way to broken terrain studded with juniper and pinyon pine. Elena proved to be an excellent guide, pointing out landmarks and explaining the grazing patterns of the small herd Whitfield had maintained. "We have about 200 head," she explained as they rode. "Mr. Whitfield kept the herd small, said he'd rather do a good job with a few than a poor job with many." "Smart man," Sam agreed. "Quality over quantity usually pays better in the long run." They reached the broken fence by mid-morning, and Sam dismounted to inspect the damage. 3 sections were down, posts snapped off at ground level where rot had weakened them. It was fixable but would require several days of hard work to do properly. "I'll need to dig new post holes," Sam said, calculating materials and time. "Set proper corner braces. This fence hasn't been maintained in a while. Mr. Whitfield became too sick to do heavy labor about 6 months ago," Elena said quietly. "We did what we could, but fence work requires strength we don't have." Sam heard no apology in her voice, only statement of fact. You kept the ranch running and the man comfortable while he was dying. That's more important than fence posts. He spent the rest of the day beginning the repairs, digging post holes in the rocky soil, while Elena worked alongside him, clearing brush and organizing materials. She was capable with tools and unafraid of hard work, and Sam found himself appreciating her quiet competence. As the sun reached its peak and the heat became oppressive, they broke for water and rest in the shade of a large juniper. Elena pulled a canteen from her saddle and passed it to Sam. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Thornton?" she said after a moment. "Sam," he corrected. "If we're going to work together, no need for formality." "Sam, then." Elena paused, choosing her words carefully. "Why did you come here? A man with your experience could find work anywhere. Why buy a small ranch in the middle of nowhere?" Sam took a long drink from the canteen, using the time to consider his answer. "I spent 20 years working for other men, following their orders, building their dreams. I wanted something of my own before I got too old to enjoy it. And you weren't concerned about Mr. Whitfield's conditions? I figured whatever they were, they couldn't be worse than spending another 20 years with nothing to show for my life but calluses and memories." Elena nodded slowly. "Mr. Whitfield was worried about us. He knew that when he died, we would be vulnerable. Apache women without protection are." She trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. "I know," Sam said quietly. He'd seen enough during the campaigns to understand exactly what fate often awaited Apache women in white settlements. "Whitfield was right to worry. And he was right to ask me to help. Some men would resent being asked to care for 3 strangers." Sam met her gaze. "I'm not most men. And from what I've seen, you 3 aren't helpless charity cases. You're capable workers who deserve fair treatment. That's all Whitfield asked for, and it's all I'm offering." Something in Elena's expression softened, a wall coming down incrementally. "Thank you," she said simply. They returned to work, and by evening, Sam had set 2 new posts and begun digging the 3rd hole. His shoulders ached and his hands were blistered despite years of calluses, but it was the good ache of honest work, of building something rather than simply maintaining another man's property. The days fell into a rhythm. Sam worked on the fence repairs while Elena, Rosa, and Maria managed the daily operations of the ranch. They moved the cattle to fresh grazing, tended the garden, maintained equipment, and handled the 100 small tasks that kept a working ranch functional. In the evenings, they gathered for meals that grew gradually less awkward as they learned each other's habits and temperaments. Rosa proved to have a talent for cooking that transformed simple ingredients into surprisingly good meals. Maria was quiet but observant, often noticing problems before they became serious. And Elena revealed herself to be not just competent but strategic, thinking several steps ahead in ways that impressed Sam's tactical mind. A week into his ownership, Sam made his first trip to town for supplies. Elena had offered to accompany him, but he declined, sensing she was concerned about the reception they might receive together. Better to test the waters alone first. The town of Copper Springs was small, a collection of buildings clustered around a main street that served the scattered ranches and mines in the surrounding territory. Sam tied his horse outside the general store and went inside, noting the way conversation paused when he entered. The store owner, a portly man with matanchop whiskers, regarded him with polite curiosity. "Help you, stranger? Name's Samuel Thornton. I'm the new owner of the Circle W." Recognition flickered in the man's eyes. "Ah, yes. Whitfield's place. Sorry to hear about his passing. Consumption's a terrible way to go." "It is," Sam agreed. He produced a list Elena had prepared. "I need these supplies, please." The store owner took the list, his eyebrows rising as he read. "This is quite an order. You planning to feed an army?" "Just running a ranch," Sam replied neutrally. As the store owner began gathering items, another man entered, wearing a deputy's badge. He was young, perhaps 30, with the swagger of someone who enjoyed the authority his position granted. "You're Thornton," the deputy said. It wasn't a question. I am. Heard you're keeping Whitfield's Indians on your property. Sam felt his jaw tighten. I'm employing 3 women who know the ranch and do good work. Apache women, the deputy clarified, as though Sam might be confused about their heritage. Women, Sam repeated firmly. The color of their skin doesn't change their capability. The deputy's expression hardened. Some folks in town don't like the idea of Apache living so close. Stirs up bad memories. Then those folks are welcome to avoid my property, Sam said. He kept his voice level but allowed a hint of steel to enter it. I own the land, I pay my bills, and I employ who I choose. Unless there's a law against that. No law, the deputy admitted grudgingly. Just wanted to make sure you know how things stand. I know exactly how things stand, Sam replied. He turned back to the store owner, who had been watching the exchange with obvious discomfort. Are my supplies ready? Just about, the man said, clearly relieved to return to business. Sam paid for his purchases, loaded them onto his pack horse, and rode out of town without further incident. But the encounter left him unsettled. The deputy's warning had been barely veiled, and Sam knew from experience that such sentiment could quickly turn to action if left unchecked. When he returned to the ranch, Elena was working in the corral with a young sorrel that needed breaking to saddle. She looked up as he approached, immediately reading his expression. There was trouble in town, she said. Not a question. Nothing I couldn't handle, Sam replied. He dismounted and began unloading supplies. A deputy made it clear that some folks don't approve of me employing you. Elena's mouth tightened. I warned you this might happen. You did. But I'm not changing my mind. It could get worse, Elena said quietly. Men talk, and talk leads to action. Sam paused in his unloading to face her directly. Elena, I've been in actual battles where men were actively trying to kill me. I'm not going to be intimidated by small-town prejudice and threats that might never materialize. If trouble comes, we'll deal with it. Until then, we have work to do. Elena held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. Mr. Whitfield said the same thing. He was right not to back down, and so are you. Rosa and Maria emerged from the house, having heard the horses. Together, the 4 of them unloaded the supplies, and Sam found himself appreciating the efficiency of their cooperation. They worked well together, anticipating needs and moving with practiced coordination. That evening, as they sat on the porch after dinner watching the sun paint the cliffs in shades of crimson and gold, Elena broke the comfortable silence. Sam, I need to tell you something about why we're here. About what happened before Mr. Whitfield found us. Sam heard the weight in her voice and gave her his full attention. 3 years ago, we lived in a settlement near the San Pedro River. It was a peaceful place, or so we thought. One night, raiders came. Mexican bandits looking for cattle and anything else they could take. Elena's voice remained steady, but Sam could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the porch railing. They killed many people. Our father, our brothers. They took the women and girls to sell across the border. We were separated from our mother, and we never saw her again. Rosa and Maria had joined them on the porch, and Sam saw Maria's hand find Rosa's, their fingers intertwining in shared memory of that night. The bandits took us to a town in Sonora, Elena continued. We were kept in a room with other captives, waiting to be sold. Mr. Whitfield was there on business, something about buying cattle. He saw us, saw what was happening, and he bought us. Sam's stomach tightened. He bought you. To free us, Elena said quickly. He paid the bandits, then brought us back across the border. Gave us work and a home. Never asked for anything except honest labor. He was a good man, Sam said quietly. He was. And when he became ill, he was terrified of what would happen to us when he died. He said he'd written to a friend from the war, someone he trusted to do right by us. Elena turned to face Sam directly. You were that friend. Sam understood now the full weight of Whitfield's request. It wasn't just about employment or shelter. It was about protection for three women who had already lost everything once and feared losing it again. "I won't let you down," Sam said. "Either of you." "All of you," he corrected, including Rosa and Maria in his promise. "We know," Elena said softly. "You're like him in that way. Men of your word." The weeks passed, marked by the slow progress of fence repairs, the seasonal movement of cattle, and the gradual transformation of four strangers into something resembling a working partnership. Sam completed the north fence and moved on to other necessary repairs, always with one or more of the sisters working alongside him. He learned their individual strengths and quirks. Rosa had a gift with animals, able to calm even the most fractious horse with patience and gentle handling. Maria had a sharp eye for weather, reading the sky with an accuracy that would have made any sailor jealous. And Elena possessed a strategic mind that complemented Sam's tactical experience, the two of them planning ranch improvements with a coordination that surprised them both. Sam also learned about their past before the bandit raid. Elena had been training to be a healer in their village, learning the medicinal properties of plants from their grandmother. Rosa had been promised in marriage to a young warrior from a neighboring band, a match both families had celebrated. Maria had been the youngest, just 15 when their world ended, with dreams of becoming a storyteller like their grandfather. All of those futures had died the night the bandits came. But here, on this ranch in the Arizona sun, Sam saw them building new futures. Not replacements for what was lost, but something different, born of survival and resilience. It was Rosa who first noticed the riders approaching one morning in late June. 3 men, moving with purpose rather than casual travel. Sam was in the corral working with a young gelding when she called out, her voice urgent. "Sam! Riders coming from the east road." Sam immediately stopped what he was doing and moved to join the women on the porch. Elena had already retrieved her rifle from inside the house, holding it casually but ready. "You expecting anyone?" she asked. "No," Sam replied. He watched the approaching riders, his hand resting on his revolver. "Let me do the talking." The 3 men rode into the yard and stopped, their horses kicking up small clouds of dust. Sam recognized the deputy from his first trip to town, now accompanied by 2 rough-looking men who had the appearance of hired muscle rather than lawmen. "Thornton," the deputy said by way of greeting. "Need to have a word with you." "You're on my property having that word right now," Sam replied evenly. "What can I do for you?" The deputy's eyes flicked to Elena and her rifle, then back to Sam. "There's been complaints. Some of the ranchers around here don't feel comfortable with Apache living so close. They're worried about theft, about safety." "Have I or anyone on my property committed a crime?" Sam asked. "Not that I know of," the deputy admitted. "Has anyone on my property trespassed or stolen from my neighbors?" "No, but—" "Then I'm not sure what you're here to discuss," Sam interrupted, his voice hardening. "I own this land. These women work for me. Unless you have specific accusations of criminal activity, I don't see that my employment decisions are any of your concern." One of the other men, a heavy-set brute with a scarred face, spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "Maybe we don't need specific accusations. Maybe we just need you to understand that Apache ain't welcome here." Sam's eyes went cold. "And maybe you need to understand that I'm not running my ranch based on the prejudices of strangers. Now, unless you have legal business here, I'll ask you to leave my property." The deputy held up a placating hand. "No need for hostility, Thornton. We're just trying to prevent trouble." "Then you should start by not creating it," Sam replied. "I've broken no laws, neither have my employees. If that changes, come back with actual charges. Until then, you're trespassing." The deputy's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. "You're making a mistake, Thornton. This won't end well for you." "That's my risk to take," Sam said flatly. The 3 men turned their horses and rode out, but the threat in the deputy's parting words hung heavy in the summer air. Elena lowered her rifle slowly. "They'll come back," she said. "And next time, it might not be to talk." "I know," Sam replied. He watched the riders disappear down the road, his mind already working through contingencies. We need to be prepared. Rosa, Maria, do you know how to shoot? Mr. Whitfield taught us, Rosa said. But we're not as practiced as Elena. Then we'll practice, Sam decided. Every evening after work. I want all of you comfortable with both rifle and revolver. If trouble comes, I want us ready. For the next 2 weeks, they maintained a careful watch while continuing their daily work. Sam taught the younger sisters proper shooting technique, impressed by their quick learning and natural steadiness. Elena, he discovered, was already an excellent shot, her accuracy rivaling his own. The trouble, when it came, arrived on a moonless night in early July. Sam woke to the sound of horses, multiple riders moving quietly but not quietly enough. He was dressed and armed within seconds, moving through the dark house to wake the women. We have visitors, he said quietly. Probably hostile. Get dressed and armed, but stay inside unless I call for you. Elena nodded, already pulling on boots. How many? At least 4, maybe more. They're trying to be stealthy about it. Sam moved to the front window, peering out into the darkness. He could see shadowy figures moving near the barn, could hear the low murmur of voices conferring. They were preparing something, and Sam had a sinking suspicion what. The smell of smoke confirmed it moments later. They'd set fire to the barn. Damn it, Sam hissed. He turned to Elena. They're trying to burn us out. We need to put out that fire before it spreads. It's a trap, Elena said. They want us to come outside where they can shoot us. I know. But if we lose the barn, we lose feed stores and equipment we can't replace. Elena's expression hardened with decision. Then we fight. Sam wanted to argue, wanted to keep her and her sisters safe inside. But he could see the determination in her eyes and understood that safety was an illusion when your livelihood was burning. All right, he said. But we do this smart. Rosa, Maria, you stay at the windows. Anyone who isn't us, you shoot at them. Don't try to kill, just discourage. Elena, you're with me. We'll go out the back and circle around to the barn from different directions. They moved quickly, Sam slipping out the back door while Elena exited through a side window. The fire in the barn was small still, just catching on bales of hay someone had stacked against the outer wall. Sam could see 3 figures silhouetted against the growing flames, watching the house and waiting. He circled wide, using the shadows and his knowledge of the property to approach unseen. Elena, he knew, would be doing the same from the opposite direction. When he was close enough, he called out, his voice carrying authority. This is Samuel Thornton. You're on my property committing arson. Leave now and I won't shoot you for it. The 3 figures spun toward his voice, and Sam saw weapons being drawn. He fired twice, both shots aimed at the ground near their feet. The message was clear: I can hit you if I want to. From the other side, Elena's rifle cracked, and one of the men yelped in pain or surprise. The arsonists broke, running for their horses which they'd left tethered beyond the barn. Let them go, Sam called to Elena. Focus on the fire. Together, they worked frantically to extinguish the flames before they could spread. The damage was manageable, 1 wall scorched and several hay bales destroyed, but the barn itself was saved. As dawn broke, revealing the full extent of the night's attack, Sam and the 3 women stood in the yard surveying the damage. Rosa's hands shook with residual adrenaline, and Maria looked pale but determined. Elena's expression was set and grim. They'll be back, she said. Failing once will only make them more determined. Sam nodded, his jaw tight with anger. Not at Elena's words, which were undoubtedly true, but at the situation itself. He'd fought in a war, had killed men in honest battle, and had thought those days behind him. Now he found himself defending his home against cowards who attacked in darkness. Then we make sure we're ready when they return, he said. And this time, I think it's time to take the fight to them. What do you mean? Elena asked. I mean I'm riding into town this morning. I'm going to the sheriff, not his deputy, and I'm filing formal complaints about arson and attempted murder. I'm putting it on record that we've been attacked. Will it help? Rosa asked quietly. Maybe not, Sam admitted. But it puts them on notice that we're not going to be intimidated into silence. And it creates a paper trail if this ends up in court or worse. He saddled his horse as the sun climbed higher, preparing for the ride to town. Before he left, Elena stopped him. Sam, she said, her dark eyes serious. Be careful. If they're willing to burn us out, they might be willing to do worse. I will be, Sam promised. He hesitated, then added, If I'm not back by sunset, take the horses and head for the hills. There are caves in the high country where you can hide until it's safe. We're not running, Elena said firmly. Not anymore. We've run enough. Sam understood that sentiment bone deep. He'd been running himself for years, from grief, from responsibility, from the possibility of caring about something enough to fight for it. He was done running too. The ride to Copper Springs took 2 hours, giving Sam plenty of time to think about his approach. Confrontation would accomplish nothing except escalating tensions. He needed to be measured, reasonable, and absolutely clear about his intentions. The sheriff's office was a small adobe building on the main street. Sam tied his horse outside and went in, finding a middle-aged man with steel-gray hair sitting behind a battered desk. Sheriff Mackenzie? Sam said. The man looked up, his weathered face showing the kind of lines that came from years of sun and difficult decisions. That's me. You must be Thornton. Sam wasn't surprised the sheriff knew who he was. Small towns talked. I'm here to file a formal complaint about an incident on my property last night. Mackenzie gestured to a chair. Sit. Tell me what happened. Sam laid out the facts clearly and without embellishment. Multiple riders, arson attempt, shots fired in defense of property. Mackenzie listened without interrupting, his expression giving nothing away. Can you identify any of the attackers? He asked when Sam finished. It was dark, and they ran before I got a clear look at faces. But your deputy, Hollis, was here last week making threats. So were 2 other men. I'd start my investigation there if I were you. Mackenzie sighed, suddenly looking tired. Thornton, I'll be straight with you. I'm not blind to the sentiment in this town regarding your employees. I also know my deputy has strong feelings about Apache presence in the territory. Are you saying you won't investigate? Sam asked, keeping his voice level. I'm saying I'll do what I can, but you need to understand the position you're in. You're an outsider employing Apache women in a town where memories of raids are still fresh. That doesn't make arson right, but it explains why you're not finding sympathy. I'm not looking for sympathy, Sam replied. I'm looking for law enforcement. If you can't or won't provide that, say so now, and I'll know where I stand. Mackenzie studied him for a long moment. I'll look into it. But Thornton, a word of advice, man to man. This territory is changing, but it's changing slow. Sometimes the smart thing is to bend rather than break. And sometimes bending is just another word for breaking in smaller pieces, Sam said. He stood, recognizing that he would get no more from this conversation. I've filed my complaint. What you do with it is your decision, but I'll be writing to the territorial governor about this incident as well. Just so we're clear. He left the sheriff's office and walked to the telegraph office, where he composed a detailed message to the territorial capital outlining the attack and the apparent complicity of local law enforcement. It cost him more than he wanted to spend, but establishing a record outside of Copper Springs felt necessary. As he was leaving the telegraph office, he nearly collided with a woman carrying a basket of supplies. She was perhaps 35, with blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that assessed him quickly. You're Thornton, she said. The one everyone's talking about. Seems I'm popular conversation. Sam replied neutrally. The woman smiled slightly. I'm Catherine Brennan. I run the boarding house at the end of the street. I knew James Whitfield fairly well. He was a good man. He was. Sam agreed. Catherine glanced around, then lowered her voice. I heard about what happened at your place last night. News travels fast. I wanted you to know that not everyone in Copper Springs agrees with how you're being treated. The unexpected support caught Sam off guard. I appreciate that, ma'am. Whitfield talked about those women he helped. Said they worked harder than any 3 ranch hands he'd ever employed. Said they deserve better than what this territory usually gives people of their blood. Catherine's expression was serious. He was right about that, and you're right to honor his wishes. Don't let the loudmouths and bigots drive you off. I don't intend to, Sam said. Good. If you need supplies or anything else, my door is open. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. We're just quieter than the troublemakers. She continued on her way, leaving Sam with the realization that the town wasn't monolithic in its hostility. It was a small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. The ride back to the ranch felt longer than the ride out, Sam's mind occupied with plans and contingencies. He needed to think beyond simple defense. If the attacks continued, he would need to prove beyond doubt who was responsible, and he would need evidence that would force even reluctant law enforcement to act. When he arrived at the Circle W, he found the 3 women had spent the day fortifying their position. They'd moved additional water barrels near the house and barn, created clear lines of sight to all approaches, and organized their ammunition and weapons for quick access. Elena met him at the corral. How did it go? About as expected, Sam said, dismounting. The sheriff will investigate, but I'm not holding my breath. I sent a telegram to the territorial capital, though. That might carry more weight. And if it doesn't? Sam looked at the ranch, at the buildings they'd maintained, at the land that had become home in the few months he'd been here. Then we document everything, we stay vigilant, and we make it too costly for them to keep attacking. Over the following weeks, an uneasy peace settled over the ranch. There were no more attacks, but there were signs of surveillance. Tracks near the property line that didn't belong to any of them. The occasional glimpse of a distant rider watching from a ridge. The sense of being observed. They adapted, never working alone in remote areas, always keeping weapons close, maintaining a watch rotation through the nights. It was exhausting, but it kept them safe. Sam noticed changes in himself during this time. The isolation he'd carried for years was eroding, replaced by genuine concern for the 3 women who shared his land. He found himself looking forward to evening meals, to the conversations that ranged from practical ranch matters to deeper discussions about life and loss and the possibility of futures they'd all thought closed to them. Elena in particular had become someone whose opinion he valued, whose company he sought out. She had a sharp wit that emerged when she felt safe, and a perspective shaped by experiences vastly different from his own. He learned about Apache customs and beliefs, about a worldview that saw connection where he saw only separation. One evening in late July, as they sat on the porch after dinner, Elena surprised him with a question. Why didn't you ever marry, Sam? A man your age, with your capabilities, surely there were opportunities. Sam was quiet for a moment, remembering. There was someone once. Mary. We were engaged right before I enlisted. She promised to wait. But she didn't? She waited 3 years. Then she stopped. Married a banker in St. Louis who could offer her stability, and a future that didn't involve wondering if I'd come home from the next campaign. Sam's voice held no bitterness, only acceptance. Can't say I blame her. I wasn't the same man who left, and she could see it in my letters. What changed you? Elena asked softly. The war. The things I saw, the things I did. You can't kill men, even in a cause you believe in, without it leaving marks on your soul. He looked at her. But you know that already. Different circumstances, same truth. Elena nodded. Sometimes I think we're all just carrying our wounds around, looking for a place where they hurt less. Maybe that's what this is, Sam said, gesturing to the ranch around them. A place where the wounds hurt less. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Sam felt something shift between them, a deepening of connection that went beyond employer and employee, beyond protector and protected. It was companionship, understanding born of shared experience and mutual respect. The breakthrough came in August, when a traveling judge arrived in Copper Springs to hear cases. Sam learned of it through Catherine Brennan, who sent word via a friendly ranch hand that the judge was known for fairness and had little patience for local corruption. Sam rode to town immediately, bringing with him documentation of the arson attempt, the threatening visit from the deputy, and copies of his correspondence with the territorial governor. He requested a meeting with the judge and was granted one that same afternoon. Judge Aldrich was a stern-faced man in his 60s, with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. He listened to Sam's account without interruption, reviewed the documentation, then leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Thornton, I'm going to be frank with you. Your situation is not unique. Throughout this territory, I see tensions between settlers and Apache populations. Most of these situations resolve themselves through either violence or displacement of the Apache." Sam felt his jaw tighten. "So you're saying?" Aldrich held up a hand. "I'm saying that's the typical pattern. But I'm also saying I have no tolerance for vigilante justice or law enforcement officers who incite violence against law-abiding citizens. You own your property legally. You've committed no crimes. Therefore, you have the same rights as any other property owner in this territory." He picked up Sam's documentation. "I'll be having a conversation with Sheriff Mackenzie and his deputy. I'll also be issuing a formal order that any further harassment of you or your employees will be treated as criminal activity and prosecuted accordingly." Relief flooded through Sam. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me yet," Aldrich said. "I can issue orders, but I can't change hearts and minds. You'll still face hostility. The difference is, now it will be clearly illegal hostility." It wasn't everything Sam had hoped for, but it was more than he'd expected. He rode back to the ranch with the judge's written order folded carefully in his pocket, feeling for the first time since the arson attempt that they might actually achieve lasting peace. Elena read the order twice, then looked up at Sam with something like wonder in her dark eyes. "This means we're protected. Legally protected." "It does," Sam confirmed. "Won't stop the bigotry, but it should stop the attacks." Rosa and Maria crowded around, reading the order for themselves, their faces showing tentative hope. For women who had known so little legal protection in their lives, the simple words of a judge carried profound weight. That night, they celebrated with a special dinner Rosa prepared, using supplies Sam had brought back from town. The mood was lighter than it had been in weeks, conversation flowing easily, laughter coming more naturally. As the evening wore on and Rosa and Maria retired to their room, Sam found himself alone with Elena on the porch once more. It had become their habit, these quiet conversations under the stars. "Sam," Elena said after a while, "I want to thank you for everything you've done, everything you've risked for us." "You don't need to thank me," Sam replied. "I'm just keeping a promise to Whitfield." "It's more than that now, though, isn't it?" Elena turned to face him fully. "You could have sent us away after that first night. Could have decided the trouble wasn't worth it. But you stayed, and you fought for us." Sam met her gaze, seeing in her eyes a reflection of everything they'd been through together. The attacks, the fear, the gradual building of trust, and something more. "You're right," he admitted. "It is more than just a promise now." "What is it, then?" Elena asked softly. Sam considered his answer carefully, aware that what he said next would matter. "It's home," he said finally. "This place, this life, all of you. It's become home in a way I haven't had since before the war. And I protect my home." Elena smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her usually guarded face. "It's home for us, too. You've given us that, Sam. A place where we're not just surviving, but living." Something passed between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of feelings neither was quite ready to name but both understood. Sam reached out slowly, giving Elena time to move away if she chose, and took her hand. Her fingers intertwined with his, callous from work but gentle. They sat like that for a long time, watching the stars wheel overhead, either needing to speak. Some things were better understood in silence. The autumn came to Arizona territory with subtle shifts in temperature and light. The brutal heat of summer eased to more manageable warmth, and the landscape took on golden hues as the grass cured on the hillsides. The judge's order had its intended effect. The attack ceased, and while hostility remained in town, it stayed verbal rather than violent. Sam made regular trips to Copper Springs, and each time found a few more people willing to do business with him, to acknowledge that maybe a man had a right to run his ranch as he saw fit. Catherine Brennan became a regular source of information and support, keeping Sam informed of town sentiment and standing publicly as a voice for tolerance. Her influence as a long-time resident carried weight, and slowly, grudgingly, the tide of opinion began to shift. At the ranch, life settled into rhythms that felt sustainable. The cattle prospered, the repairs held, and plans were made for expanding operations in the spring. Rosa had proven to be remarkably skilled at horse training, and they'd begun acquiring young stock to break and sell, creating a secondary income stream. Maria had discovered a talent for keeping accounts, her careful records and shrewd assessments of market conditions helping Sam make better business decisions. And Elena had become his true partner in running the ranch, her strategic thinking complementing his practical experience. They worked together, planned together, and spent their evenings talking about everything from philosophy to the mundane details of ranch life. Sam found himself happier than he could remember being, the hollow places in his soul slowly filling with purpose and connection. One evening in October, as they sat on their customary spot on the porch, Elena said, "Sam, I need to tell you something." The serious tone in her voice caught his attention immediately. "What is it?" "Rosa has been courted by a young man from town. Thomas Garrett, the blacksmith's son. He's been coming out here on Sundays, asking permission to call on her." Sam hadn't known, though he realized now he should have noticed Rosa's improved spirits, the care she took with her appearance on Sunday mornings. "How does Rosa feel about him?" "She likes him. He's been respectful, kind. Treats her like a lady rather than—" Elena trailed off. "Rather than an Apache woman who should be grateful for any attention," Sam finished. "I'm glad. Rosa deserves happiness. Thomas has asked her to marry him," Elena continued. "And she said yes. But Sam, they want to stay here, build a house on the ranch, start their life here. Is that something you'd allow?" Sam was quiet for a moment, thinking through the implications. Another family on the property, the gradual expansion of their small community. It felt right somehow, a natural evolution. "Of course," he said. "We can survey a good spot for a house, somewhere with access to water but close enough for safety. I'll help Thomas build it." Elena's relief was palpable. "Thank you. Rosa was worried you might object." "Elena, this ranch has become home to all of us. If Rosa wants to build her future here, I'm honored that she chooses to stay." Elena was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "And what about you, Sam? What future are you building?" Sam turned to look at her, seeing in the lamplight from the house the woman who had become central to his life in ways he was only beginning to fully acknowledge. "I think I'm building whatever future you'll be part of," he said honestly. Elena's breath caught. "Sam, I know it's complicated," he continued. "I'm your employer, you've been through hell, there are a dozen reasons this could be a mistake. But Elena, I care about you. More than I've cared about anyone since Mary. And I think you feel something too." "I do," Elena admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have for months now. But Sam, I'm Apache, you're white. The world won't look kindly on such a match." "The world hasn't looked kindly on much of what we've done," Sam said. "Hasn't stopped us yet." Elena laughed softly, a sound of relief and joy. "No, it hasn't." Sam stood, taking both her hands and drawing her to her feet. "Elena, I'm not good with flowery words. But I know this, you're the strongest, most capable woman I've ever known. You're smart and brave, and you make me want to be better than I am. I'd be honored if you'd consider a future with me. No rush, no pressure. Just consideration. Elena looked up at him, her dark eyes reflecting starlight. I don't need time to consider, she said. I already know my answer. She rose on her toes and kissed him, a gentle touch that held the promise of everything they'd built and everything they might become. When they finally parted, Sam rested his forehead against hers. So that's a yes? That's a yes, Elena confirmed, smiling. They stood together in the cool October night, two people who had found in each other something they thought lost forever. Hope, purpose, and the possibility of happiness. The months that followed brought changes that felt like natural growth rather than upheaval. Rosa and Thomas Garrett were married in a small ceremony at the ranch in November, with Judge Aldrich traveling from Copper Springs to perform the service. Catherine Brennan attended, as did a surprising number of townspeople who had come to respect Sam's integrity and Rosa's gentle kindness. Sam and Elena were married in January, a quiet ceremony with only Maria, Rosa, Thomas, and Catherine present. Elena wore a dress Catherine had helped her sew, simple but elegant, and Sam wore his best suit, brushed and pressed for the occasion. They spoke their vows on the porch where they'd spent so many evenings talking, the words traditional but the meaning profoundly personal. Sam promised to honor and protect, to support and cherish. Elena promised loyalty and partnership, to build together rather than apart. Maria served as witness, her eyes bright with tears of happiness for her sister. When Judge Aldrich pronounced them married, the small gathering erupted in genuine celebration. Spring came to the Arizona Territory with wildflowers and new calves, with the sound of hammers as Thomas built his house with Sam's help, with the gradual warming of the land after winter's brief chill. Sam stood one morning on the ridge above the ranch, looking down at the buildings that represented everything he never expected to have. A home, a family, a future worth protecting. Elena climbed up to join him, fitting naturally under his arm as they surveyed their domain together. You know what Whitfield did, don't you? Sam said after a while. What's that? He saved us. All of us. Gave us a second chance when we'd given up on having one. Elena nodded. He was wise that way. Saw what we needed before we knew we needed it. I'm grateful to him, Sam said. Every day. Below them, Rosa emerged from her new house, calling to Maria to come help with something. Thomas was working in the corral, training a young horse with Rosa's patient methods. Smoke rose from the main house where Elena had started breakfast before joining Sam on the ridge. It was an ordinary morning on a small ranch in Arizona Territory. Nothing remarkable to outside eyes. But to Sam, it represented everything remarkable about second chances, about the courage to rebuild after loss, about the unexpected ways broken people could heal each other. We should head back, Elena said. Breakfast will burn. Let it burn, Sam replied, pulling her closer. I want to stay here just a moment longer. They stood together watching the sun climb higher, warming the land they'd fought to keep, and in that moment, Sam understood what his father had meant all those years ago. A man's worth wasn't measured by his victories but by who he protected when no one was watching. He'd protected 3 women who needed protection, and in doing so, they'd protected something in him that he'd thought dead. His capacity for hope, for connection, for building rather than destroying. James Whitfield had given him that gift with his final request. And Sam would spend the rest of his life proving worthy of it. They descended the ridge together as the Arizona morning opened before them, full of possibility and promise, full of work to be done and a life worth living. The ranch spread below, home to a family formed not by blood but by choice, by circumstance, by shared determination to make something good from the broken pieces of their pasts. It wasn't the life Sam had imagined when he rode into the valley months ago. It was better.